right? This is just all of the Pokemon information, right? That's just being hosted at localhost 3000, and it looks just like one large array with all of these Pokemon objects in them, right? We went through all those objects, and then we just appended them right onto the DOM, right? We did the inner HTML, added like a Pokemon card to the container for each of these Pokemon, right? And it looks something like this. Cool? So here's what is happening. If you remember in Rails mod 2, we did Rails S and we spun up that server, right? And we hit a couple important routes. Index, show, new, create, edit, update, and delete. Do you remember those 7? I just counted them. Make sure I hit them all, right? So what did those RESTful routes look like? Maybe something like this. There was like a get. What is a get to Pokemon? Stop the madness. The index. Stop the madness. It wasn't that long ago. All right, cool. So I have this, let's see, Pokemon. Oh man, do they not have IDs on them? Oh, they do. All right. So if I were to go to like Pokemon like 37, what would that be? Oh, that one doesn't exist. Lies and slander. Are we like that deep? Are we that deep in there? Let's try 5. Oh yeah, that's right. Oh, embarrassing. There we go. So yeah, I think it's like in the hundreds. Where is this database? It was just Pokemon? Ridiculous. Let's just, all right. Rails. ID 7, great, 7. Very good. Dolphin, hamburger, cool. So this is just the RESTful routing, right? So I'm just introducing to the minimal API that we're creating with this faked JSON server, right? You can imagine in your Rails backend, right? This is just essentially the show page, but instead of the HTML, it's just JSON, right? And I'm going to show you how Rails can send back JSON instead of HTML next week. Do you remember I did that? Like, hey, what do we need from the model? What's the response we send back? And then I'm like, for now, it's just going to be, we're going to render. I said that? I did. Check the recording. So now that we kind of like understand that, let's walk through this refactored code. What I'm going to do is I'm going to talk you through what this code base is currently doing, and then we're going to do all those AJAX actions, and then I will show you what production-ready code looks like that Mike and I put together last night, just so you can kind of see what that looks like. And I know you're all very curious to like, hey, we're writing all this code, it works, but what can I expect when I'm going into production with a similar feature set? Cool? Great. So the first thing is, I just have this DOM content loaded. I create this global variable, and all I do is I grab the search container, the search bar and the Pokemon container, right? Here is just this fetch. It's just the get, right? I'm easily just leaving out this sweet old, right? No big deal, MBD. I'm returning the parse JSON, and now all that Pokemon is equal to that data. So I have it accessible globally, and then I run a helper function called show all Pokemon. We did not see this yesterday, but let's run through what show all Pokemon is. Wow, right here, powerful. What it does is it takes in the data, right? So the Pokemon here. And this data is what, when I fetch the index, it's an array of 150 or more to see. Right? Just gotta catch them all. So this Pokemon, right, really should be Pokemons. All right? The data is going to be an array of like 150 Pokemon. So far, so good? So in this helper function, the 150 Pokemon, I'm simply going to set the inner HTML. I'm not plussing, I'm setting to all these Pokemons, and I'm mapping through a callback function, which is going to be render single Pokemon. Based purely on this amazing naming convention, what do you think this function is going to do? Render, stop the madness, come on now. Yeah, display, render, same thing, right? It's going to do something with each of these, and it's going to render the single Pokemon, and map returns a new array, a copy of the array, and I'm going to be getting into that same problem that Chris definitely went over, right? It returns an array, so I have all the commas. In order to get rid of all the commas, I'm going to do this dot join, right? So I'm doing this dot join to get rid of the commas, and I'm rendering a single Pokemon for each of these Pokemon objects that's coming through the data. Let's take a look at single Pokemon. This is what we know and love, right? I'm just taking each one of those one at a time, all 151, and then I'm creating this like card for them. So far, so good. And that's all that happens. And then I run fetch Pokemon, which is this, which is the whole fetch wrapped in a helper function. Are there any questions as to what is happening on the page? And this is obviously pretty much the same code, right? I'm clicking through and it's just flipping the sprites. You don't have to actually write it because map takes a callback, right? I cannot pass in a Pokemon object here because then I would be invoking the callback here. Does that make sense? So this is a reference to a function, and I see your question, and that is, how do I know that this is going to be getting a single Pokemon every single time? Because map is going to feed each one individually to the reference to this callback. Was that clear? Right, so like when I call this, I know I'm getting an object because map is going to give me each object one at a time as the iterator. Cool.
That just looks like you're calling to show all Pokemon, the Pokemon that when you're passing data in from the JSON file. That's everything, so that wouldn't incorporate the filter, or that filter's only happening from the input event, right?
What filter? This one?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I didn't go over this.
Oh, never mind. I'm sorry. That's happening when you're typing.
Yes, this is an event listener that only fires after I start putting in the input. So one quick thing I want to go over before we move on is, I'm gonna get rid of this real quick. All right, sweet. So one quick thing I want to go over is, notice this is an empty array right in the beginning. When is this data updated? On line 12, right? Inside the fetch. We know that this will pop off immediately, return a promise, go into the event loop. So when does this update? When does all Pokemon no longer become an empty array, but actually store the data? Negative, Batman. On line 64. Remember the event loop. The data will not come back until the call stack is empty. The call stack is only empty once the global execution is complete. So, knowing that and remembering that, if I were to just say, in the middle of somewhere in my code, after line 12, if I were to console log all Pokemon, what would it be?
Empty array.
Absolutely. Why is it that inside here, sorry, just kidding. Why is it that inside here, I can call all Pokemon.filter? Yes. Once I hit line 64 and I'm in 65 and the global context is complete, what happens? The event loop comes back, the data is set, and this event listener will happen after the user types in some input, meaning this was set already. So think of it like this in a timeline. Ready? So right here, global is donezo, right? Then what? Right after global is done, right, the page is completely loaded. And the user is like, wow, great page. Now the user is going to type something in the input field, in the search bar. So if the user is typing something in the search bar here on line 70, right, the global is done. Where did that fetch return? On 65. So if the global is donezo, then the fetch finished and the array was updated. Is everyone tracking that timeline? I need to show of hands for this because it's going to be very hard moving forward because the async is very important. Oh, good. So, super fast. This fetch waits until the global context is done, sits in the event loop until it's done, then comes back. Once it comes back, it updates the data. At 65, the global is done. The fetch is finished. The array is updated. The page is actually done loading. The user sees the page and then starts to type something. That's why inside the input listener, this is actually something. So if I console log inside this input, it will exist. But it will not exist just like outside anywhere else. This is going to be after the whole page is loaded, after the fetch is done, and the user can actually utilize that data. Cool?
When you say you console.log it, doesn't it require the user to input for it to...
Correct. Yeah, once I'm here and I console log, the console log won't fire until a user puts in like any input. Cool? All right, I'm going to move on. So, are there any questions as to this refactored code and why it's working for our purposes? Cool. Is everyone cool? Ready to go create? Great. Let's do that. Bloop. 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 Great. So, first thing I want to do is I want to, by the way, I just made this form. Did you see it in the JavaScript? No. Why? Because I just hard-coded that bad boy right in the HTML. Hot dog. Right? And if I didn't want to do that, I would instead have a button here that said, make new Pokemon. It would append this exact form right on the page, and then I can do stuff to it, right? Cool. So instead, it's right here in the HTML for easeability, but we will be working on a form that gets appended. Cool? So I want to type something in here, something, right? And the front image is like some front image.png, and some back image is like google.whatever, and then I found some back image that I'm going to add on .png, and then I want to hit create that Pokemon. And what I want it to do is a few things. One, oh man, I didn't delete your data. Yeah. I wanted to add to the bottom here. Great. I wanted to add to the bottom here, right? The reason I specified that that is two different actions is because inside the fetch, right, this is the GET request. Inside the fetch, when I finally write it, it's going to do what? It's going to do method post. The database gets updated. But does the DOM, though? No. So I need to update in two places so far that we're tracking, right? There will be a mysterious third place that I will tell you about later. But for right now, when I hit this create button, I need to update in how many places? The database and the DOM, right? Be good. So, first thing I want to do is, how can I get, well, let me ask you this. What information do I need to create that Pokemon? Yes, the inputs, right? Specifically, right, the name, the front and the back image. Like, I can also have more input fields for like move list and stuff, but let's not get too crazy. Cool? So, what do I need to do to get the inputs from this particular form? I need to select them, right? Cool. Let's do something real quick. When I hit create that Pokemon, what should happen without any... Yeah, let's go.
It'll hit the route and should try to go to a different page, whether or not it exists.
Absolutely. If you remember, 100%, right? What he said was it will hit the route, and that is index.html, and it will post. I specified post here, but forms will naturally, by default, post, right? So if that's the case, what should I expect to see? The form will trigger a post request and a full page reload. Luckily for me, my files happen to be called index.html. So when I post to index.html, it will bring me to index.html. So I should see a full page refresh. If this, however, was awesome.html, what would happen? This will become awesome.html. It will look inside here for something called awesome.html, not find it, and get back a blank page, right? Some sort of 404 or blank page. Cool? Are there any questions on that? On the routing for the form? Awesome. Let's continue. Great. Do I want this to just do that full page refresh? No. So what should come first? Grabbing the inputs or grabbing the form? Sure. I want to put the inputs on the DOM, but what should I do first, the inputs or the form? Knowing that if I grab the inputs, I can have their value, but if I grab the form, I can probably stop the full page refresh because no matter what, those inputs go away on that full page refresh. So what should come first? Form. Let's do that. This looks like a good old place to do it. How would I do that? Const what? Create form? Sweet. And that's going to be a with the, what was that? New Pokemon form. Money. Look up. Look up. Look up. Cool. Where do I normally see all of these? So let's just keep this organized. Right? You will start to see that there's no app controller, views, DB, migrate folder. It's not organized for you. It's in one large monster file. So you will have to learn how to organize it yourself. And then if you don't, it gets tricky, right? So what do I want to do with that form? And how do I do it? I want to listen to that form, right? How do I do that? And what do I want to listen for? Very good. And then what do I do here? Callback, right? Very good. Be good. Cool. And what happens here? Huh? First, I do want to test, but remember, I can't test until I block that full page refresh, right? So, do I just prevent default in the error over here? Remember, it takes the event in here, and then it's event dot. Cool. In case you forget, you'll start to realize, like, wait, how do I write that code? Right, that's to prevent the refresh, right. So do you see how I did that? Where it was like, oh, I know I need to prevent default. That code just doesn't look right. Oh, right. I call it on the event. Then I put the event into the function as an argument. In case you forget, you can kind of work your way backwards into it. I do it all the time. So then I can just what? I'll probably want to log the, just want to see what the event.target looks like. So I wrote some code, and I want to make sure it works. Bloop, bloop. Oh, I'm sorry, it's on the submit, right? Winnie the Pooh, front image is O, and the back image is K. Cool. So the submit does, in fact, trigger the console log. So We are in the money. I'm in the money. What is next? Now that I have prevented the default, what was that other thing that we said we absolutely needed? We need the values from the inputs, right? So a little bit of this magic. What? New name input, right? I only pause here because I want you to like take that second and think, what would I name that? Right? Just so you can kind of like think it through. And I'm just giving you these like obnoxious suggestions. Yes, sir.
Should those only be in the event listener or global?
Hmm?
Should those be global or only in the event listener?
I'll play. Should they be global or in the event listener? Who says in the event listener? Who says global? Okay. Would you need access to it outside of this event listener? Would you want the inputs of this create form outside of submitting the form?
No.
That's right, no, right? I'm never gonna need the inputs of the form outside of listening on the form. Does that make sense? Unless you're doing some really weird stuff where like, hey, type in this form, and then all the way on a different part of my website, I need that data. Then you would move it up to global. But if I'm just doing stuff with the form, I would simply only create the memory space for it inside the form. Fair? That was a very good question, and I only throw it back because I need you to think things through. Was that like a solid answer?
Yeah.
Cool. Bet it up. So how do I get it? Who says document? Who says form? I can throw it right on the create form, right? Because the query selector takes in an element. The document happens to be an element, right? And what is the query selector I'm looking for? I'll show you this later. New poke name, cool. So, look up. Yeah? Probably want the other inputs too, right? Look up. So is it new name input or new front image? Something like that. And then new back image. And then what are those things? It's just back sprite and front sprite, right? That's right. I was wrong. Very good team. Is it an ID? Yeah, right. So smart. So smart. Cool. Can I do something now? That's right. Absolutely. Test that. So I need the new name input, right? And then I need the new front image, and then I need the new back image, right? What should I get when I log these? I get the HTML, right? Which is why I kind of want to test this, right? So if I just do this, I just get the inputs. What do I really want, though? That's why it's important too. Cool. I'm in the money. I'm in the money. Is that what I want? Right? Amazing gibberish. Cool. What do I do with that now? Right. Probably this is the information I actually want to send back to the database. Cool. So how do I send a network request? Right. Do I want to fetch right here? Right. What I'm asking is, do I want to fetch right here? Okay. Where do I want to fetch? Sometimes I'm not trying to trick you. You know, I definitely have all the stuff. Now I want to go ahead and run that fetch. Right. So I will go ahead and give you the URL. Oh dang! I need that string though. Actually, let's just get this whole thing. Cool. What would be the URL to create? Because remember, what was that new and what was that edit? That like /Pokemon/new/Pokemon/edit. What did that give you? Gave you the form, right? Do I need to get the form? I already have it. So if you really think about it, how many RESTful routes will I really kind of have in JavaScript? 4, right? I don't need, actually it's 5, yeah. I don't need the edit and the new, right? That makes sense because the form already exists. There's no view page for that form. So what is the RESTful route to create? Is it something like create here, or I can just post right to this? You remember? You want me to go to RESTular? Who wants me to go to RESTular? Not going to waste my time. Cool. But you got it, right? Good. Airborne. And this is going to be a airborne. Cool. So what else goes inside here? Sorry, that's a bad habit of mine. Well, in case I forgot, I can always check the fetch MDN. There we go. Powerful. Using fetch. Great. Using fetch. Right? We've seen this. Pretty simple. Right? We did this yesterday. It took us an hour. Right? But I mean, now you understand it better, right? Come on now. Stop playing. Great. Example of a post implementation. Cool. It looks like I can do this fetch. I have a URL, and I have all these extra options that I could set before the .then. So I'm just going to talk you through really quickly what they are and what it is that we need. Here we have method, explanation over. All right? We have something called CORS, cross-origin requests, and they will come into play much later. Cool? Cache is just if that information is saved in the cache instead of like a database. Credentials, in case you have like authentication, which we will get in mod 4. Headers here. There's something called content type, and that makes sense because inside the headers, you are going to let the server know what type of data you are going to send. And you are going to send over, the content is going to be for an application, and it's going to be JSON, right? You can always pass in redirect referrals, like where it came from before. Don't worry about that. And then ultimately, what the payload will be. What do I actually want to send the server in terms of the raw data that I want to hit the server that I'm going to be using to create the object? Right? Why do I want to JSON.stringify this data?
Because you want it to be a string of data on an object.
Well, I'm telling the server I'm about to give you JSON. The data that I'm about to send should be JSON, right? So I can easily do something like, okay, good job, NDM.
Oh, it's JSON in a string.
Yes. I can simply do const, right, cool object. What do we have? Cool. Whatever. Cool is Andrew. Nice. Noise. Can I JSON.stringify the cool object? And now it comes across as a string. This is useful because now it is language agnostic. I can get it back in Ruby, I can get it back in Python, and I can JSON.parse it. And then it would look like a hash or a dictionary or whatever key value pair that language utilizes. Right?
That's powerful.
Cool? Parsing is taking the string and making it into a JavaScript object, or rather a Ruby hash. Cool? But I need to make it JSON first when I send it across. Cool? And so naturally on my back end, the first thing I do when I receive that data, JSON.parse, and then do something with it, right? Just think that through. Cool. So, huh?
That's like reverse.
Cool. So let's do that. you want me to like copy and paste it and work it through, or do you want me to like write it from here? I'm gonna copy and paste and work it through. Cool. So in the fetch, I have a URL and I have all of these extra options. Cool. Huh? So I'm just going to do this. So you see the whole thing in action, right? The URL is right here, so I'm just gonna get rid of this. And you will often see the fetch look like that. If you really want to get crazy, you can const and you can just put like create URL, and then you would just rip this, put it in there, and then put create URL there. Remember, the RESTful routes are used very often. The base of the route looks the same. So we're not going to do that though. Cool. Any questions so far as to how I pulled all of this into my fetch? I will not need all of them. I definitely know I need that post. I don't need this. I don't need this. We have no auth in this fake JSON server. We're not going to worry about caching. We're going to hit the database directly, and there is no such thing as cores right now. Cool. If you want, we can Google that offline. In the headers, I want to make sure that it's content type. Oh, dude, I totally forgot. I'm spacing on this. What is it? Accept type?
Oh, yeah, the headers.
Yeah, accept.
Yeah, content dash type and then accept. Yeah, application slash JSON.
It's accept dash type, right?
No, just accept.
Just accept? All right, cool. Got it. And now, here's the thing. Let's think about this. When I send over the data in JSON, do you remember in your Rails server, what do you send back? What would make sense to send back? If I want to create a new Pokemon object, here's the data to create it. What should the server send me back? All right, I want to create a new Pokemon. Here's the name for the Pokemon. Did it create? Give me the Pokemon back, all right? And what type of data should that come back in? JSON. So I want to make sure the content type I'm sending is JSON, and I'm going to accept JSON as a return value. Cool? Let's think this through. In the delete, does the server send you back anything? No, right? But will I be sending something over?
Yes. Oh. No.
Not really. So maybe in the delete, the header's not important, right? Something like that. So like, don't copy and paste everything. Understand what they're doing. Sometimes you might not get a response back as JSON. Sometimes like, I just need to send data to the server. Cool. So I don't need this redirect. I don't need this refer. Bloop. Cool. So what is the data I want to send back? In the body, I'm going to stringify some data that I want to send to the server. What do I want to send to the server? The inputs, right? How would I do that? Can I? Well, who has an idea, right? Because like we gotta start thinking through. Let's send one thing over and just see what happens. Yeah, that would be what I would just test, right? What would be the most useful thing to send over? Right, probably the name, right? So new name input. Cool. Are we done? Console log what? Probably don't want this comment here. Huh. It's weird, right? How can I test this? How can I test this? After the fetch, I know that I will get back something, right? The server should send back something. So I'm simply going to see what that is. Remember, it's coming back as JSON because that's how I'm going to accept it. right? So I'm going to set the JSON, and then, this is disgusting, sorry. Ugh. Cool. Then what? You like that one? Yeah, I like that was good. Huh? I'm just gonna make this explicit because I don't think you're comfortable with arrow functions yet, but we will get there. Yes, very good. I saw the face when I was like, oh, this is an arrow function. Okay, here we go. Ready? This is just a fat arrow function. It takes in the response, and because it is a one-liner, I do not need the brackets, and it will implicitly return. Cool. This is a callback. So I saw your faces, so I was like, okay, got it, Roger. And because of that implicit return, it is going to give me something. Who knows what that is? Then I can log. Cool. Any questions on logging this and how I got the two .thens to test what maybe this will send back? I'm assuming that means great, so let's rock and or roll. Cool, rock and or roll. Do I need to send an image? Something, right? Yeah, that was funny. You guys like typos? Ridiculous. I don't actually recognize that error. Oh, type error. Yeah. Ja. Cool. Is there anything in here that talks about how to send that body data? I just want to pull it from the doc so you can kind of see it. Otherwise, I gotta just give you the answer, which I don't like doing. Andrew, you know, if inside the fetch docs it says how to send it in the body properly.
Look for using fetch.
Yeah. See, right now.
Oh, wait, hold on. That was it. Command F for JSON.
That doesn't sound right.
That was it just there. What, keep going? There was one that was like JSON.string.
Oh, I did. So like I'm literally sending this new input name from this value.
Right.
And it's giving me a type error.
Oh, because you have to set an object.
Oh, unbelievable.
It has to be an object.
Totally forgot. Can't stringify nothing. Yeah, it was a weird error. Cool. That took a lot of. God hell.
Is everybody familiar with that command that you just used? Talk back to your text editor.
Which one?
Notice that you have curly brackets, new name input. Right? If the key and value pairs match.
Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. It's a shorthand for this. If the key and value pairs match, as of ES6, shout out to modern JavaScript, we can actually abbreviate this. And JavaScript will infer that you want a key of new name input that points to whatever variable is stored at new name input. So this is the same as just saying new name input in curly.
Yeah. You learned this in the ES6 lecture. Sorry, I jumped ahead. But is everyone cool with that? Cool. Did I refresh? G is for gains. Oh, I don't like that. It doesn't like the type. How does the server respond? I saved this for like later. Because I knew.
It needs it, so JSON server needs it to be the same way that it was like sent through. So you need like,
Oh, I needed to put it in name. Got it.
You need like the actual like keys and values that are in there.
Yeah.
It's the same way that like your Rails controller is going to be looking for your params to be structured in a specific way, right? Like we all remember strong params. Params don't require name or whatever. Params don't require Pokemon.commit.
I just thought that there was no validations on it, but it doesn't like it. Cool. So inside the server, it's expecting something called name, right? Remember, this is like one object, and the key is going to be name. That's what it's expecting. And then it's also going to be expecting what? Let's take a look at how that data is coming back. It's expecting a name, and then it's expecting what? Something called sprites, and then nested inside is going to be front and back. So we have sprites, Nested inside is going to be front and back. I think it needs this comma here. Cool. So what is the name that I want to send back? Sorry, I thought it was going to like give me like an example in the fetch, but it didn't work out. I wanted to walk you to this point, but I couldn't. So, does everyone understand why I have to put this JSON.stringify in this format? Because that's how it's going to create it, with the name, with the sprites, and inside the sprites, it's front and back. And that's the data that it wants in that format. Cool? Thumbs up? Awesome. Yeah, because it didn't like the type, and I was like, the docs didn't help me out there. The one time, right? And what's the new front image? Cool? So now G is for gains, right? Hadouken. You want to make a new Pokemon? Let's find one. What do you guys want to make it with?
He needs credit, man.
Fine. Great. What do you want? The sir? You want the sir?
Yeah.
Great. Copy image address. Cool. Gels. What's the back image? Yeah, that is a very dapper Bulbasaur. Okay, we don't have time. Let's make him angry and attacking. All right, this will be it. Copy image address. Cool. Cool. Let's create that Pokemon and see what it logs through. I thought I could have sworn I did. You see anything wrong with this? It wants the name, sprites, front and back image. Do I close this? Yeah, I close this here. I'm in hell. Yeah, I'm in JavaScript hell. Well, I'm in one curly boy hell somewhere. I'm running into this type error.
So intermediate is not a function. HTML format. Index.js 39. Go there.
Yeah, oh shoot. Sorry, I'm calling it.
Oh, you're missing a closing parenthesis. Fetch never closes. Just add a closing parenthesis. They're missing that.
Oh, I think I put it down here like an idiot. Like an idiot. Great, now we have to find those images again. Great. Now we have to, actually I think I have it here. Oh, yes. Yay, cool. And let's get the sir back. Oh, wow, powerful. Great. I was in JavaScript hell. Cool. Great. Why did it get an ID? Because the database would give one, right? Once it creates. So this is the data that it sends back after it's been parsed. Cool? So where can I see this Bulbasaur?
And this is why you test to see what the database
Great. How come I don't see the Bulbasaur here? Because all I did was create it in the database. I did not update the DOM. So how can I do that, and where do I want to do that? Well, let me think. Right when it finishes, I can update, right? So here I want to talk about something important, right? So this is called pessimistic, right? So when I'm right here on line 43, where am I? I'm still in the event listener, but not inside the fetch. Correct?
Correct.
So here's two key important terms, right? So there's something called pessimistic rendering and optimistic rendering. What pessimistic rendering means is that I do not trust the server. I'm very pessimistic. So when I run this fetch, only after the fetch comes back and it is successful do I update the DOM. Right? Remember, this fetch goes into La La Land and then comes back later. What I can do is on the submit, the second I submit the form and the fetch fires and it's happening in the background, I can update the DOM before the fetch comes back. Knowing and hoping optimistically that that fetch will in fact work according to plan. Do you understand the difference?
Yeah.
One more time, even slower. Here we have the fetch. Inside the fetch, after it comes back and it is successful from the server, do I render to the DOM? Optimistically, the second I hit submit, before the fetch comes back, I can update the DOM. Either way. There are benefits and cons to both. It will be based on what it is that you want to do. So, for example, if I'm on Hacker Noon, I'm on Stack Overflow, I'm on something, and I just want to do a like button, very likely that like button will probably be successful, right? Very likely. It makes sense that something like that would render optimistically because it creates that amazing user experience where the second I click the like button, it goes red, number +1. And then the fetch can happen in the background and take its time. That way the user doesn't see a difference. As opposed to if I pessimistically render a like button, the user will click it, the fetch request will happen, it'll hit the server, and then 2 seconds later, great, it did it. Then the DOM updates. The user will think, man, your website's slow. 1 star. Forget that noise. So something like that, right? But at the same time, if you're doing a major change, like creating something in the database, do you want to optimistically render something like that? No, because if it fails, the user will immediately see a created action and then be like, okay, it's good. But it didn't actually do it. It failed the fetch. It failed hitting the server for whatever reason. So maybe something like this should be pessimistically rendered, right? And the choice will always be yours as the developer, what you want to do. Does that make sense? So here, I'm going to choose to render pessimistically because in the event, right, I was in JavaScript hell and it did not work and I rendered optimistically, I will 100% see Bulbasaur on the page, but the fetch will fail and the user will refresh, notice that Bulbasaur is gone and be like, your website doesn't work, it's trash, 1 star, and then never use it again. Did that make sense? I know, I spiraled out of control there. That was tough.
Like if your backend was in Europe somewhere and the sharks bit the cables, but
You'd be done. You'd be done. Don't optimistically render, pessimistic only. No, but remember, use cases, right? And that's why I want to explain to you the difference. So here we will pessimistically render. And what do we want to render? Well, first we need to create a new card, create a new Pokemon card with the data from here. And that is going to be Pokemon, right? This newly created Pokemon object came back. We saw that, right? So inside this Pokemon, what do we have? Name and sprites, right? We do not have like a move list for them. We don't have any of the other stuff. But we do have this. And we can tell because inside my database, if I were to refresh, oh, dang it. I should be able to see. Great, now we have to, because I messed that one up, right? That was like the Bulbasaur, that was like the Hadouken we try to make. Now we have to like get those images again. That's that one. Cool? That means that if I were to refresh, will this be there? If I refresh, will it be there? Yes, because the fetch happens again, right? Oh, there it is. Whoa, whoa. Sir. Powerful. Cool. So let's start some pessimistic rendering and see it go to the page. Cool? So how do we do that? Well, let's take a look at our code that we have available. And that is render single Pokemon. Amazing. Do we need to do something like this? Right? We probably need to call that function. Do we have the Pokemon's data? Okay, cool. So I can probably do something like const new Pokemon equals to it happened to be exactly the same because I named these the same. But if I was like Pokemon parsed JSON, then of course, obviously, I'd change it. Did I lose anybody on that? No? Should be pretty easy JavaScript at this point. Cool. What now? What is this? This is just HTML. Did it do anything? Did I actually add it to the page? No, I didn't, right? So how can I add it to the page? Huh? I could probably append at this point, or I have the container, and I can just, inner HTML add it to the bottom? Here I'd want to, the new Pokemon, which I definitely added an extra capital for no reason. There we go. I was waiting for that. Y'all just love correcting people. Cool. Sweet. So we have this Pokemon container. Good deal. Awesome. Let's make a new Pokemon. What is it? What do you want to make? Ugh. Guy Fieri's mom? Sure. Megan Fieri. Oh, that's the daughter. This is fine. This one? Guy Fieri theme party? Wow. This is money. This is money. Right? And what's the back photo? You want anime style? Yo, is he? Fine, this one. This one's pretty buddy. All right, we don't have a lot of time. Cool. Flavor Town. Flavormon. Cool. Great. So what I should see. Oh, stop the madness. Stop the madness. Oh, sorry. I was waiting for the console log, but I realized I took the log out. I do need to reset the form, but let's evolve Flavormon. Oh! Oh! What happened here? Why is this happening? Too much flavor? Well, let's read the error together, right? Cannot read property sprites of undefined. So we have an event listener on this Pokemon container. What's going on? Cool. Let's review the event listener and backtrace what's happening. Cool. I click, right? What does that click handler look like? I'm looking for an image tag. Cool. And then const found Pokemon is equal to all Pokemon.find. Interesting. Wait, what is all Pokemon here? Oh, great. Is it not a global variable? It is. Why don't I have that all Pokemon? No, it should be all Pokemon should exist as a. Oh, it doesn't exist. It's a let. Which means it's block scoped. Which means it does not exist outside of this. Cool. If I change this to, no, const is also block scoped. I'd have to var it. Ooh. Let's get away from that, right? The point I'm trying to make is, right? Remember I said there are two places of data so far we need to update. The database and the DOM, right? All Pokemon, let's see here, inside this click, right? Does all Pokemon have those extra Pokemon I just created? No, so there is actually 3 places I need to update my data. Does that make sense? Do you understand how I found that bug and the logic behind that?
I guess I wonder why the book
I refreshed it. Yeah, so when I refreshed it, all Pokemon got reset. But here, right as I created, I scrolled straight down. On refresh, they'll work. Cool? So I have to update my local variables. So here I can do that. How can I do that? Push what? That new Pokemon. Cool? See, I'm so proud of you understanding these powerful variables and why it's happening because your JavaScript's so good. Oop.
Can we just see in that bottom of that fetch method, the 3 places you have done your work?
I'm going to show you like all these comments that we put together, but here I have to add the new Pokemon because on the click handler, it's going to be trying to find that Pokemon. Yeah? Because found Pokemon is called here. But I don't have the 3 I just made without the refresh. So you always want to keep all your data in sync.
Is all Pokemon the object portion of it or the HTML?
The all Pokemon is this array that after the initial fetch is going to be all like 150. And then as I create on the page, all Pokemon is still 150. I want to create and now be 151. I want to create and it be 152. I want to create and it be 153 before the refresh happens.
Is the inner HTML of each Pokemon or I forget where? It's the object, it's like the whole thing, right?
It's all the Pokemon, just objects.
So what did you just put in?
I just put in the brand new Pokemon.
Yeah, but that's the rendered version of it, isn't it? That's not
This is all Pokemon.
the new Pokemon is rendered single Pokemon. It's inner HTML, it's not.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. It should be the original Pokemon object.
Yeah, that's
Ooh, wow, good shout. Good shout. Good shout. Plus, plus. I would have found that with console logs because we need to test our data, right? But good, very good. Cool. Are there any questions as to why I did it? And can you name the, how many do I need to update? 3. And what are they? Yes, the database, the DOM, and local variables. Here it just happens to be 1, but as you can imagine, as it gets more complicated, you might be messing with more than 1 object. And to get back the original point, why it's so important that objects are passed by reference is because when I change this one object and I push, which mutates the object, all Pokemon everywhere as a reference gets changed. Is that clear? I'm not creating a new variable here because how would I reference that same variable with that same data somewhere else? So passing by reference can seem tricky, but is extremely useful and important. Yeah? Awesome. So, yes, sir.
Shouldn't you also have some other like JavaScript stuff so that maybe the page immediately scrolls down to see it was created?
That sounds like fancy JavaScript. But yeah, you could do that. Cool? And yeah, like right here, I would just scroll to the bottom. Cool? Great. So that's just the post. Do you need a break? Oh, you want a Guy Fieri to evolve? Bloop, bloop, bloop. Flavormon. Flavormon's evolving. Uh-huh.
Is it a lot of CSS if you just wanted to have like fixed higher type of pictures?
You know what? The truth is, what's happening here is if you look at the HTML, all of it is being applied to like the div. It's being applied to the div. You get to style the image directly, and it'll hard code like the image itself. Cool? All right, we're not CSS masters in here. All right, maybe Mike Chang, but cool. All we need to know is the functionality. We can fix CSS later. Cool? Great. Do you guys want a break? Raise your hand for a break or carry on my wayward son. One person for a break. Okay, interesting. You're right. You guys take 30 minutes for a break. Let's push on, and then you'll go to lunch. Cool? Great. So we're just going to push to lunch. Cool? So the next thing I want to do is I want to do what other CRUD functionalities are there besides this create and this read forget. Great. So the functionality I want to create, we want to create, is that I want to be able to edit or delete these. All right? Do I want this like big old edit button sitting here out of nowhere? Like where would you want to put the edit button? On each individual Pokemon, possibly? Right? We could do a modal later. I don't have time for it. But I want it on each individual one, right? Which would make sense because if I hit edit here, like which one am I editing? That's bizarre. I want it on each individual card. So where would I put it to put it on each individual card? When it gets created, I can simply, what? Just drop it right here and just go button. Yeah? And what do we want inside this button? What attributes do we want? Sure. Editor. Edit. Do we want any attributes for this button? Button will submit automatically, yeah. But what do we want? Well, let's think it through, right? I'm probably going to want to for this button, right? Okay? And it wants like a regular old ID or a cool. And what is that going to be? Maybe the Pokemon ID? Cool. What else do we want? Is there anything else we want on there? You can traverse it, but it becomes tricky because you would click the image for edit. They are unique, yeah. Data ID, you can assign as many times as you want because this is something for you as the developer to be able to grab and manipulate the DOM. The ID and classes are generally reserved for HTML because you want to apply CSS to them. So we've used these data set attributes to describe what we're trying to do as developers. Does that answer that? Yeah. Cool. So we also want a delete button. So, powerful. Yeah? I mean, yeah, we'll send the divs. We won't send the divs. Yeah? Great. What happens now? I need an event listener, right? Yeah? Do I have an event listener already on the container? I have it on the picture or on the container, right? Event delegation. So I have something that's important that I want to show you about event delegation. I think it's like event bubbling. Cool. There's like a really good Stack Overflow. So just as a powerful visualization, right? Notice that these divs are nested, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If I highlight the 1, the parent div 1 knows about it. If I highlight the 2, does the parent div know about it? Yeah. What about the child elements? Yeah. Yes. Right? The child elements don't know about anything that's happening. But here I just have like a fancy on hover that will color everything. So if I'm on 5, 1 will know. But if I'm on 1, only 1 will know. Right? Is that a better visualization of understanding? As you nest, the event bubbles up. Cool? Great. Tangent over. So let's get back to the code. We have these edit and delete buttons. I do not want to create a separate edit and delete listener if I'm already listening on the container. Remember how we got to the image specifically. We were listening for an image specifically. Can I just listen to an image specifically? If e.target is not the image, right, but instead, what attributes do I have? What do I have? If I click the image inside the container, then I flip it. But I want to click the button. But specifically, what about this button? Because if I use button.tagName, can I differentiate these two? No. Right? I have a data ID, right? Is that useful? Because they're the same. Can I just, now, what am I trying to do? This would be for edit. Ooh. Now, I can do data.action. If that is equal to edit, I can do something now. Remember, reminder, powerful reminder. You are a full stack developer, right? You have control of the front end and the back end. If the HTML does not suit your needs, make it suit your needs. Yeah? You are the captain now. So, what do I want to do? Nice try. Come on. Nice try. Come on now. But you're definitely on the right path. But first, we want to test, right, inside edit. Cool. And then what else? Cool. If this is delete, we want to say inside delete. And this is just to prove that they're not overlapping, that we're clicking the button that we are sure we are clicking, and then we can take some action to it. Cool. So here we have bloop, 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 bloop. But are they different? How do I know that when I click this edit button's not being clicked? Cool. Can I verify that somehow? How can I verify that? Let's log it, right? Inside edit, right? Another comma, and that's going to be what? What do I have access to here? Seven, 10, 11, 12. They are in fact unique, right? So I'm sure that I'm doing the correct thing. Cool? So now that I know that, what can I do here? If I click the edit button, what do I want? Do I want to send off the edit? Do I want to fetch it right now? Let's think, let's think. I got to get that edit form, because what data am I going to be editing with? Stop the madness. Stop the madness. So I need to add an edit form, right? Where do I want to add the edit form to? I can, right? So here's a couple things I'm going to do, and I'm going to explain. Do you remember when I said that, hey, do I need this data outside the create form? And I was all like, nah, and then I like pooped on somebody, and now I feel terrible about it because we probably may need it now. Yeah. Right? Here's the thing. I can do a couple things, ready? And we're only going to do one because we only have time for one, but I want to explain both procedurally. If I click edit, I can have a form just drop down with the data to edit for that one. And you've seen that in Gifter. Remember? Did we do that in Gifter?
Yeah, we just didn't get very far.
Okay. We can do that, or I can make these inputs global. I can type whatever I want, and I'm like charid not zard, card, whatever. And then when I hit edit for here, it'll submit the edit for here. I can do that. That becomes a little bit more complicated, but if you understood that logic, would you be able to implement it? Right? I just extract these inputs into more of a global thing, and then when I hit edit, it can simply fire off the patch request with that data. Cool? As opposed to clicking the create, which will take the same inputs and send a post request. Are there any questions as to the logic of using that method? It's a terrible user experience. It's a terrible user experience. I'm just saying that it's possible.
How many stars?
Yeah.
So you're saying you would fill it in first and hit edit rather than hit edit and have it autofill for you? Steal it for you?
I would rather hit this edit and a drop down come out or a modal pop up on my screen or something like that as a better user experience. So let's do that. Here I can do what? What do I need to do? On this e.target, I need to probably, I can append child. What does append child take?
I thought you would do the element that you're appending to for the same parent.
Huh?
Don't you like do document.append child?
Yeah, but I mean e.target, I can append child on. Oh yeah, right. E.target is an element. So let's do it without being too complicated and be really vague and generic, right? Because I can see I lost some of you. So what I want to do is I want to click edit, and then on this container maybe, I can just add a form. Cool? So do I have access to the Pokemon container? Cool. What is the Pokemon container? All right, I can just go, let's do this. Let's drop a debugger here. You don't have to have this, but I put it in as a bad habit. As a good habit, rather. Oh, excuse me. If I hit delete, nothing happens. If I hit edit, I should hit the debugger. Cool. So inside the debugger, do I have access to E? E.target. Powerful. I know this button, it's highlighted. Can I traverse the DOM? It's on this parent element. And does that have a parent element? Boom. I can go up, and that code is gross. It's gross, right? But I know I can do it. Cool? So let's not do that and just simply on the target, let's add the form. How can I add the form? I can either append it, but appending needs a node. Needs a node. I cannot pass it in as like that HTML string interpolation I've been doing. Do you remember? That's why I needed to do document.create element. Give it some inner text and then append that. Here I'm just going to inner HTML it. I'm just going to plus equals to, right, a form tag. No, the target should be here. I'm just going to like add the form. Cool. I can, in fact, do something like that. Cool. So it shouldn't be here. Does that make sense? About adding the form like right onto the element. I'm just going to like append it on. It's a terrible user experience, but I'm running short on time. I just need to like show it to you. Great. Guess where I stuck and hid that form? Like a champ. Bloop. Yeah, you like that? We added a CSS style called hidden on this. Cool. It was there the whole time. So this is gross, right? So gross. Let's just put it on the parent. Dot. Let's see what happens. Cool. Just gonna add this form on there. Oh, is a debugger there? Go. One person, cool, thanks. So, right, now I have this, and I got that, and I got that, right? And naturally, when I fire this edit that Pokemon, what should happen? I need to grab the inputs of here, right? I have to. So guess what? Inside all of this, one massive one, I also need to grab the inputs. Ready? God dang it. All right. So name, edit, input equals 2, right? I'm running out of time. But then I would grab the front and the back as well. Cool? Cool. There is a much better way. There is a much better way, but I have to show you the thought process procedurally before I monster refactor it. Cool? So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to leave it right here. We have to continue this lecture after lunch. But if you really want to see the better way, I'm going to show you for 2 minutes the better way, what good production code looks like. We will continue this trash code after lunch. Cool? So let me show you the production.